Okay, so recently, James Harden came out and reported that the Philadelphia 76ers, they're interested in trading for the bearded one. That's right, that's former Sixth Man of the Year, former MVP, multiple scoring championship, that James Harden. They want to put him on Philadelphia. Now listen, this is what's interesting about that. Both of these squads, Philly and Houston, have shaken things up. And the former GM of the Houston Rockets, Mr. Trade Anybody I Can, Mr. Daryl Morey, is now running the Philadelphia 76ers. So you know he wants to put James Harden in a Sixers uniform. So what would a trade look like? Is it possible that the Philadelphia 76ers, a team that really haven't been a legitimate contender since Allen Iverson back in 2001, could they legitimately put Philadelphia back on the map with James Harden and one of these big men, whether that's Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons? Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. When it comes down to making this thing happen, I've seen a lot of different rumors and reports out there. One thing that won't happen, there's no way Philadelphia 76ers get James Harden without giving up either Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid. We're not even going to play fantasy basketball. The only way you're going to get that superstar, you got to give up one of them. So the question is, which one? Which one is the better fit? Which one makes the most sense, not just for the Philadelphia 76ers, but also the Houston Rockets? I mean, you got to realize, they still have a GM over there. They still have an owner. They still have a coach. They're still in a situation where they want to win, and they're in a deep Western Conference. So on this episode, we're going to be discussing the potential blockbuster trade where the bearded one could end up in the Eastern Conference with the Philadelphia 76ers. Man, let's get into it.
Are you ready?
Welcome back to Journey of a Ballaholic, the best talk show for basketball addicts. I'm your host, General Hannibal X. Now, if you're new on this channel here, you're going to be getting my passionate and in-depth analysis on the hottest NBA and college basketball topics. Listen, I'm a ballaholic, absolutely addicted to basketball. And just like everybody, I've got my own opinions. But if you like opinions that are backed by facts, go ahead and hit that like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Listen, I'm back from vacation and we're ready to rock and roll. The NBA is right around the corner, man. They just announced that the Players Association has decided to start the season December 22nd. Listen, today's November the 6th, so we're talking about less than a month and a half before the NBA season is back. That means we're like 25 days from training camp. I love it. I love it. We got the NBA draft coming up on November the 18th. Free agency is going to start shortly after that. Trades will be able to start going into effect in the middle of November. So we're talking a couple of weeks. We're back into the swing of things. So I had to go ahead and get away from a little bit. I feel refreshed, rejuvenated. So let's go ahead and dive into this story right here that James Harden broke about the Philadelphia 76ers wanted to get their hands on James Harden. Once again, as I said from the beginning, it's not possible for them to form a big three. That's not going to happen. So the question is, who should Philadelphia trade? What should they give up to be able to get James Harden if they can do it at all? And I'm going to run through a couple scenarios in which I think best fits the Houston Rockets as well as what's going to best fit the Philadelphia 76ers and if it makes sense for either team at the end of the day. Now, for me, I think it really is going to come down to a couple of different things. Number one, you got to keep in mind, this is not fantasy basketball. This is not baseball. This is the NBA where you do have salary caps. This is a situation where you gotta abide by the CBA. And right now, James Harden's gonna be making about $41 million next year. Now, that's tentative because they're talking about a potential escrow because you gotta remember, there's a lot of money that was lost last year because of this whole COVID situation. And so because of that, now that they're transitioned to this 2021 season, they've already said they're only going to play about 72 games. So that's revenue that's going to be lost. They're going to try to find creative ways to make that up. But let's just use the numbers as is right now. Because if there's an escrow with these NBA players' contracts, someone like James Harden who's making $41.2 million, his contract would actually come down to roughly like $34 million, somewhere in that range. So we're going to just stick with what we know right now, which is $41.2 million. And in order for the Philadelphia 76ers to get close to that, or to be able to make that trade for Harden, they got to get close to that in salary cap space. So at the end of the day, which star would the 76ers have to trade in order to get a superstar like James Harden? So for me, I think it boils down to Joel Embiid. He's the guy that has to be involved in this trade if I'm the Houston Rockets. It's a no-go if Joel Embiid's not in it. But you can't stop there. Joel Embiid's only making about $29.5 million. So I would also add in Josh Richardson, who could replace James Harden as the shooting guard. He's making roughly about $10.8 million. So you get close to that $41 million contract that James Harden's making. So think about that. If you ship out Joel Embiid and you ship out Josh Richardson, what does the Sixers team look like? Does it make sense for them? I think it makes a lot of sense. You would then have Shake Milton running the 1, James Harden at the 2, you have Tobias Harris at the 3, and now you put Ben Simmons at the 4. We saw that last year, how he was kind of switched off the ball some and put at that 4 spot where he could be almost in that Draymond Green role where he's setting the screen for James Harden, rolling, and then he's a secondary playmaker. We know he's an elite defender, and at that 4 spot with his size, he can defend, he can rebound, he can push it in transition, and when he gets in the half court, you can give it to Shake, give it to James, and get out the way, get in the dunker spot, where at that 5, you would then also have Al Horford. Al Horford, as we know, he can show that 15-footer, he can even step up to the 3-point line to kind of give them space. So I like this lineup from a Philadelphia 76ers standpoint, and honestly, I think this makes the Sixers a much better team. In that East, where you've got the Milwaukee Bucks, you got the Brooklyn Nets, the Miami Heat, the Boston Celtics, the Toronto Raptors, you got a lot of teams in the East. I think that Philly team will be right there with the best of them. I mean, this is a legit big 3 when you're talking about James Harden, Ben Simmons, and Tobias Harris. That's a legit big 3. And remember, there's a new coach over there, Doc Rivers. And Tobias Harris, 1 year of being kind of his breakout year was with the Clippers under Doc Rivers. And you got Daryl Morey, who's now the GM of the Philadelphia 76ers. And some of James Harden's best years has been the talent that Morey has put around him. So I love that fit for Philly. But let's look at the flip side. If the 76ers are to send away Joel Embiid and Josh Richardson, now I think they would also have to, throw in some draft pick, maybe some cash considerations as well. But from a talent perspective, look at this lineup for the Rockets. You're talking about Russell Westbrook at the 1, Josh Richardson at the 2. You would go like a PJ Tucker and a Robert Covington at your forward spots, and then you got Joel Embiid at the 5. Now, the reason I think this makes sense for the Rockets is because, number 1, Russell Westbrook's best ability is attacking. You've got to have space, and Joel Embiid is a legitimate big man that can step out to the 3 and can give Russell Westbrook that space. So you can play pick and pop, you can play pick and roll. Joel Embiid on the defensive end, as we know, is elite. So I like that from that aspect. Also, in those situations where Russell Westbrook isn't attacking, he can just throw that ball down to Joel Embiid on the box, who can go get an easy basket. So I like that matchup, that tandem between Russell Westbrook and Joel Embiid. Also, Josh Richardson, like I said, he brings his shooting to kind of give them somebody else to where you can put Eric Gordon back as that 6-man role and allow him to come off the bench being that sniper that he is. Now, this is the real, and probably the most important reason why the Houston Rockets would do something like this, or even consider it. Listen, you've got to have big men, specifically in the West. In the East, you got to have it too, but specifically in the West. Think about this. You've got Anthony Davis. You've got Nikola Jokic. You've got Rudy Gobert, Porzingis, Nurkic. I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge. Like, you've got DeAndre Ayton. It's a lot of really good big men in the West. So if Houston's going to compete, they got to get some size over there. And listen, Joel Embiid to me is a top 2 center. He's like a top 3 big man in the entire NBA. So if you bring him over there, you're getting elite size, elite rim protection, and versatility on offense. But there are downsides to this. Listen, if Houston makes this trade, they're getting the lesser talent. Not just from a talent perspective, but remember, from an abilities perspective, because the best ability is availability. James Harden has never, in his entire career, has never missed more than 10 games in any season. Joel Embiid has never played more than 64 games in any season. So you're talking about a guy who you don't even know who's going to be there for a quarter of the season. I just don't see it happening because of the health factor of a Joel Embiid. Russell Westbrook, you know he's going to be on the court. When James Harden plays, you know he's going to be on the court. Joel Embiid, you just don't really know. So I think that would be the one holdup, would be from the Houston Rockets side to basically say, listen, as much as we want to get size, as much as we want to get some elite size over here, as much as we want to be able to get somebody who can play inside, outside, offense, defense to pair up with Russell Westbrook, it can't be at the expense of James Harden. James Harden to me is a top 6 player in the NBA. Top 7 at worst. I don't care what your rankings are. You can't put him lower than number 7. How do you give him up for Joel Embiid and Josh Richardson? I just don't see it happening. I just do not see the Houston Rockets being able to pull that trigger, specifically because Daryl Morey's on the other side of that trade, and knowing that he's all the teams that he's fleeced before and all the trades that he's willed and deal. So I don't know, man. You gotta let me know in the comment section below. Who do you think would win this trade? Let's talk hypothetical for a second. If this trade were to happen, Joel Embiid and Richardson to the Rockets, Harden to the Sixers, who would win that trade? Who would be the better team based on those lineups and those matchups that I gave you? You going with the Sixers or you going with the Rockets? And also, do you think that that trade would happen anyway? Let me know in the comment section below. Listen, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead, make sure you hit that logo. Also, if you've missed my new series, and I got a new members only section where we're doing live Q&A sessions. I've got a new cooking show called Cooking with the General, where I'm prepping, I'm cooking, and we're talking all things basketball. We got the draft, we got free agency all season. Listen, the NBA season is starting December 22nd. We're right around the corner. So, listen, if you haven't joined that, go down, hit that white join now button, sign up. If you missed any of my previous videos, make sure you go ahead and hit the box right here. And until next time, make sure you stay safe in the streets. And remember, we still demand justice for Breonna Taylor and Jacob Blake. Peace.